Okay. Good? Okay. So, the first thing that so all of you have seen me before, I think. If you haven't, I'm Amanda Gumbert. Mr. Comley, I think we've met before. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get up and move around. And so what I'm going to ask of you is that we're going to use this front space, and we are going to create with our bodies a Likert scale. Do you understand what I mean by a Likert scale? So on this side of the room, it would be I strongly agree with this statement.
A 5.
Or a 5 or a 10, whatever. On this side of the room is I strongly disagree with this statement. You may be anywhere along the line between strongly agree and strongly disagree. And you're going to vote with your body. Does that make sense? So we're going to do a warm-up question. And the warm-up or the statement is 8 a.m. is too early to have class. Strongly agree, strongly disagree, somewhere in the middle.
Do I get to play?
You can play, Carmen, yes. Eric.
Good morning.
Okay, 8 a.m. you strongly agree that it's too early to have class. Strongly disagree. Yes, I know Carmen's probably like way over here, like, well, that's midday. Okay, so take notice of who is near you and where your peers are on the line. You're way over, oh, you're strongly disagree. She really disagrees. Okay, so the next statement is, so y'all get how this works. The world's natural resources exist for people to use. Strongly agree. Strongly disagree.
Wait, we just switch sides. This is disagree.
Agree. And you all may bunch up on one another in the middle if you want to, which looks like maybe there's, okay.
I'm going to be in the middle.
So again, the statement is the world's natural resources exist for people to use. Okay, interesting. So a little bit different than our spread from the last one, right? Okay, and the next statement, people will eventually develop new technologies to cope with environmental problems. Strongly agree, strongly disagree. Okay. Okay, the next one. Recycling is the most important thing people can do to help the environment.
Not kidding.
Yeah. Running over everybody here.
Carmen's cruising.
Okay. There should be laws restricting development on farmland or forest land outside cities or towns. There should be laws restricting development on farmland or forest land outside cities or towns. Strongly agree, strongly disagree.
We're like bumper cars.
No, you can't go there.
Okay, and then the last one is all people have a right to clean air and water.
Not you.
No, I'm actually right here. I don't believe in rights.
Okay, so, all right, you can sit down. So that's the last one. So now, my question to you is, how did this exercise make you feel or think? What did it make you think, feel? Like, what's going on in your head as you were doing the exercise?
What side was the answer that I was trying to convey? Because I kept going the wrong side. But like, I don't know, a lot of them, you have to qualify. Like, the questions were broad, but you could qualify them and make them go either way.
Okay. Okay, good. What else? Naki agrees with that. What other thoughts maybe were in your mind as you were doing this?
We seem to have similar perspectives, but I mean, the scale, once you got down to where we were all clumped like that, even within that clump, there was even a spectrum within that where we didn't quite disagree or agree, but there was even a spectrum within there.
Right, absolutely. It was really interesting to kind of watch you all move, and the one that everybody kind of bunched up was what the world's natural resources exist for people to use, I think. And so the point of this exercise is a couple of things. One, as an environmental educator or as an educator at all, it's important for us to have a variety of ways that we convey information, right? And for the educator to get information back from the audience, as well as to give information. So I like this as you can do this in a variety of ways. I've done this with little kids, and you can ask them questions like, how many TVs do you have in your house, or screens, or whatever. How many siblings do you have? Do you like early morning? What kind of music do you like? It's a way for you to get information from your audience. It's also a way for your audience to get up, start moving, physically be moving or looking at other people in the crowd that they might not interact with just sitting in a classroom style setting. So understand, this is an activity that comes from Project Learning Tree. I don't think we'll get their books, right? They won't get any of those unless they go through a workshop. So if you aren't familiar, we'll talk a little more about the project, but Project Learning Tree is a environmental education curriculum guide that's really focused on trees and forests, but has lots of different activities in there as well. And so, like I said, I've done this with young children as well as adults, like colleagues of mine from different universities, and researchers and extension people, and I made them do this activity once as an icebreaker, and it was like almost like this dichotomy of the extension people like, oh my gosh, this is so great, we're talking, we're interacting, and the researchers were like, I don't want to get up and move, I don't want to talk. Yes, yeah, please leave me alone. So anyway, that's just kind of a start for us to start thinking about environmental education. So the topics that I presented were very much environmental topics, but what Eric pointed out is really important, is that for the rest of society, those of us in this classroom are very environmentally aware, conscious, or whatever series of words people might use to describe us as people who have a great appreciation for natural resources, so much so that we're in degree programs, or we've been through degree programs, or what have you. And so, oops, let me get back to where we need to be here. So it's interesting, though, that you can't make a blanket statement about all of us as a group that we all believe X, Y, or Z. And we just displayed that. So we're going to talk a little bit then about, is this our fancy remote? Yeah, about environmental education. And I think the topic also says ethics. We're going to probably talk more about ethics on Friday. We're really going to mostly focus this morning about what is environmental education, what are the roots of it, how is it different than other areas of natural resource study. But it's not the remote, or it's not working. We'll just do this. Okay, so what is environmental education? So the EPA has a definition that says environmental education is a process that allows individuals to explore environmental issues, engage in problem solving, looking for my remote, and it's apparently not there, we'll deal with it, take action to improve the environment. So these are really key things to think about. It's the process that allows us to explore our environmental issues, engage in problem solving, and take action. And I really think this kind of getting this information and moving toward the taking action is the important part here to improve the environment. As a result, individuals develop a deeper understanding of environmental issues and have the skills to make informed and responsible decisions. So we're kind of taking that thought of getting the information and then helping the audience be able to make informed and responsible decisions. Essentially, this is the whole, is that working?
Maybe, maybe not. You can trust me.
Okay. It's the whole, here we go, yeah. Premise really of what we look at for an undergraduate degree, right? Is we want you to be able to, when you leave this university, to be better skilled, more knowledgeable so that you can make more informed decisions. But it's focused on environmental issues. So components of environmental education are awareness and sensitivity to the environment and environmental changes. And everything really on this list is focused on the environment and environmental changes. Knowledge and understanding. I kind of feel like this knowledge and understanding really is the basis of where we have to start. I mean, awareness is really maybe the first thing. And when I think about awareness, I think a lot about this in terms of watershed education and working with audiences that don't even know what the word watershed means. So teaching them what a watershed is helping with awareness. Having a sign somewhere that says you are in the Wolf Run watershed, that's awareness. And then taking them toward knowledge and understanding. But sometimes we don't go beyond awareness. We kind of get stuck in here. It also, a component are our attitudes. So attitudes of concern for the environment and motivation to improve or maintain environmental quality. Also includes skills. So the skills to identify and help resolve these environmental challenges. And participation in the activity. So taking this awareness, building knowledge, changing an attitude, providing a skill, and then leading to participation in activities that are going to improve a situation. And one thing that environmental education is not is advocacy. And that's sometimes where we get I think there's labels and misnomers of what environmental education is versus environmentalism. Does that make sense? And you're going to read Two Hats, and I think Eric has read this a long time ago, multiple times probably. But this is an interesting article about how there is environmentalism and there's environmental education. And so I know from my personal experience, my family thinks I'm a tree hugger. And from interacting sometimes with farmers, I come across as the tree hugger. When I think of myself, I don't think of myself as kind of an extreme environmentalist. I'm not chaining myself to a tree or to a bulldozer or living in a, whatever that I think of maybe more extreme environmental statements. I'm not saying those things are bad. I'm just saying that's not what I do. I feel like I do more education and try to bring that. But the thing that is challenging is many of us have these personal, we're passions, I guess. We're passionate about something because we've learned about it, we believe in it, we feel strongly that something should be protected or utilized in a different way. And so we have to be careful when we're presenting information as an educator that we're presenting information and we're not taking our own personal views and projecting those into the classroom, wherever that classroom may be, indoors, outdoors, or whatever. Does that make sense? It's super challenging. And you probably will occasionally catch yourself in a situation you're going, oh, how did I even get here? Like around Thanksgiving table, if you go home and start talking some environmental issue, my family just wouldn't engage in the conversation, but you might have somebody with opposing views. And it's just, that's not what environmental education truly is.
So you hear a lot of times people talk about, we're not teaching you what to think, but we're teaching you how to have those critical thinking skills to evaluate it for yourself.
Right, and I think of it also, it's the same concept as a land grant institution. right? That's what we are at UK, is a land-grant institution. And with extension, like Carmen and I do extension, and Eric does extension, our job is to take knowledge that was developed either here at this university or other universities that have gone through peer review that we believe is sound scientific information, and we share that with the constituents of the state, the residents of Kentucky, in whatever capacity we can. And so we're taking research-based information and extending it out to the people of Kentucky. That to me is a similar approach is what environmental education is. We as environmental educators, it's our job to learn about soils and water and trees and wildlife and all the components and the functions that those systems do, and then we are to help educate others about how those work. And with that, that is that first step of awareness and knowledge. And then as someone has that interest, they can learn more about it, and they can learn about opportunities that they can participate in, and it's up to that individual to determine what level of commitment and passion that they develop from that. Does that kind of make sense? It's a real balancing act, quite honestly. And it's tricky too, because when you're really passionate about it and you go, oh my gosh, I get paid to do this, this is so exciting. And then you have to really make sure you keep yourself in check so that you're not pushing your own personal agendas, but that you're really presenting science information. Okay, so environmental education is defined by Kentucky state statute, and that is that it's an education process dealing with interrelationships among the natural world and its man-made surroundings. It's experience-based. I think that's really important, as well as interdisciplinary in its approach. So we may all have our personal bends toward a particular topic that we like or know more about, but we also have to understand it's very interdisciplinary. A continuous lifelong process that provides the citizenry with basic knowledge and skills necessary to individually and collectively encourage positive actions for achieving and maintaining a sustainable balance between man and the environment. So like for me, I'm pretty excited that we actually have this. A definition for environmental education in Kentucky state statute. So a little bit of history. So environmental education does have its roots in the 60s and 70s of, you know, hippie music, free love, and environmental issues, and saving the world, right? But it comes from this expectation for quality of life. And so Silent Spring by Rachel Carson. Have y'all read Silent Spring? I made it through, like, I'm gonna be honest, I made it through a couple chapters and it was so depressing. I was like, I don't have the space in my life for this kind of depressing information, so we're just gonna move on. I got the gist of it, we're moving on. But her book brought to light an issue that might not have ever been noticed if somebody hadn't spoken up and done that. In 1970, we had the first Earth Day, and then through all of this as well, in the 70s, we had the Cuyahoga Rivers burning, which led to the Clean Water Act, and then Safe Drinking Water Act, Clean Air Act. All that stuff is happening in about that same time frame. It's based on some original nature study. When I think of nature study, I think about Aldo Leopold. And if you've learned much about how Aldo Leopold did observation, just sitting on his bench with his coffee and his pipe at the shack every day, every week, or whatever. And when he's recording the birds that he's seeing through the year, that's some sort of observation nature study type thing. So that is one of kind of the precursors to environmental education, and then also conservation education. So bringing to light these environmental problems and through that, having some sort of policies developed or policy changes through government situations. And then also outdoor education and progressive education. So understanding, as educators went from early, you think about an early format of teaching, you think about like a one-room schoolhouse kind of thing, and what a challenge these teachers had. There's one person, students of all ages, and they're learning, and then somehow we said, oh, we should separate them, and now we're starting to integrate multiple ages back together, right? So it's all these different kinds of educational strategies, but using the environment as the context to learn all sorts of skills. So in 1975, the Belgrade Charter is a proposed global framework for environmental education, which happened during the UNESCO EE workshop, which, let's just think about this, a global framework for environmental education in 1975. So could we do that today? And I mean, think about our current political, worldwide view, climate, whatever you want to say. In 1975, this was pretty exciting that, you know, this was a global framework. And so the statement for environmental education was to develop a world population, not just a US population or a Kentucky population, but a world population that's aware of and concerned about the environment, associated problems, and has knowledge, skills, attitudes, motivations, and commitment to work towards solving these current problems and the prevention of new ones. So when we think about our population continuing to grow over time, and we think about all the needs that this population is going to have, I think it's pretty awesome that we actually had this in 1975. But it's arguably, like, the question is kind of what have we done with it, right? And what are we going to do with it? Could we do more with it? In 1977, there was the Tbilisi Declaration it endorsed a series of environmental education goals, objectives, and guiding principles. So we went from having this global framework and a statement to having a series of environmental education goals, objectives, and guiding principles. So let's look at these real quick, and then we won't spend a ton more time on that. So the goals are to foster clear awareness of and concern about economic, social, political, and ecological interdependence in urban and rural areas. And so I think interdependence is really the key statement there. Also providing every person with opportunities to acquire these knowledge and skills. And then creating new patterns of behavior. So having again, going back to having, where's my little thing go? Having awareness, having opportunities to learn, and then creating new patterns of behavior for individuals and groups. So can you think of something, I'm kind of thinking of one particular, that maybe came out of this? Like one, maybe a cultural norm that you have probably certainly grown up with. Grew up with it as well, of an environmental issue, of a way that we could, as individuals, impact the environment. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking about. Is that?
I was going to say littering.
Litter, yeah.
Don't give a hoot to a pollute.
Right, so littering.
I was thinking about the guy with the single tier.
Oh, right. And then there's Woodsy. So we culturally have grown up knowing that litter is not okay, haven't we? So my mom's generation, we were talking about this the other day. So I grew up in the country. We did not have trash pickup. So there was a community dumpster that you had to drive about 3 miles to get to. And it sat, this strange place off the side of the road, and you would go and you dump your trash in there, or you would burn it. That's the other issue. You could either burn it or dump it in there. And all down the hillside behind it, is all these busted up bags of trash that people either were too lazy to throw it into the dumpster, or the dumpster was full, or a pack of wild dogs came and dragged, they smelled chicken bones, and they drug the bag out, or what have you. And so that was culturally okay. My mom said, growing up in Alabama, that they would take their trash to a bridge and drop it over. She told me that, and I was like, I couldn't believe it. She may as well have just told me that the end of the earth had just happened. I was like, what? And so, but they didn't know. So it's like a series of not understanding where things go. Same thing could happen, or or really an example of with sinkholes, right? I mean, culturally, people drop stuff in sinkholes because it just disappeared. The earth swallowed it back in, you know, and magically recycled it into a tree or something. I don't know. So littering and then recycling is what really I was thinking about is, you know, I grew up with knowledge of that we could recycle, but there weren't a lot of facilities. So there was effort involved to recycle. And now we can do curbside recycling, at least in Lexington. Not all communities have that, obviously, but it's easily accessible. There's recycling containers around, but yet, is that really, so it makes us feel good that we're gonna use a plastic bottle and recycle it, but is that truly a good thing to do for the environment? So there's all these different, Naki was plastered against the wall, strongly opposing that then recycling was in. So these are things, so it's awareness that you could or should recycle. We used to actually reuse things instead of just recycle, you know, so then we went to disposable and then recycling. So there's all these different concepts that change over time. Okay, let's go over to objectives: awareness, knowledge, attitudes. You see a pattern here, right? Awareness, knowledge, attitudes, skills, and participation. We really want to get from awareness to participation, because feeling like getting that participation is really what's going to make a difference in the environment. Okay, so we also want to talk a little bit about